DCU sequel ideas connecting Superman, 2025, The Batman, 2022, and The Flash, 2014. I know James Gunn, Warner Brothers, and company will devise a better way to introduce the rebooted DCU Flash and Batman, so this is just food for thought about how they could do it with Pattinson and the CW Flash to ride the popularity of both characters and to avoid potentially unsuccessful reboots of Batman and Flash. My DCU sequel ideas connecting Superman, 2025, the Batman Trilogy, 2022, and the Flash TV show, 2014. First sequel, The Batman and the Flash, The Brave and the Bold. Premise. This is my fan idea for just one way to introduce the Grant Gustin version of the Flash and the Robert Pattinson version of the Batman into the DCU. It would be like a different DCU version of the Flash movie from the DCEU, using Flash as a catalyst for Batman's introduction. This time in the DC multiverse, the Flash would use the Speed Force to visit alternate timelines parallel to the DCU, visit Pattinson's Gotham and retrieve him from its realistic timeline, and would enable Batman to finally save his parents, albeit in the alternate universe, to avoid the grandfather paradox of time travel, of the fantastical timeline of the DCU. Imagine the Flash, himself a product of family loss, facilitating an epic heroic moment for the Batman, who finally saves a version of Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne in Crime Alley as his grand entrance into the DCU. Superman would cameo at the end of this first sequel to set up the Justice League and the next sequel. Story summary. Barry Allen is a forensic scientist. He is struck by lightning that is a result of a massive explosion at a particle accelerator. The lightning, a product of the dark matter from the explosion, hits him, and he falls into a coma. When he wakes up, he discovers he has the ability to run at superhuman speeds. His superhuman speed allows him to use the Speed Force, which enables him to access and alter timelines in parallel universes of the multiverse. Despite many successful heroic missions in his own timeline, his happy life is once again consumed by sorrow and turmoil when his wife, Iris West, dies in a tragic car accident. Consumed by the same remorse that haunted him during the death of his mother, Flash decides to try to save his wife from death in one of the timelines of the DC multiverse. However, every time Flash travels to another timeline and saves a version of his wife, that universe collapses due to the superhuman interference that makes it unstable. While traveling through the multiverse in an attempt to prevent his wife's death in one timeline, the Flash sees the timeline of Bruce Wayne the Batman, the heroic vigilante whose parents' tragic deaths inspired him to save Gotham City from deadly criminals. Sensing how similar their motivations for heroism are and realizing Batman has been traumatized by the death of his parents, Flash brings him to the DCU timeline to give Batman the chance to finally save an alternate version of his parents from death. The confused Batman soon realizes he has somehow entered a parallel universe and an alternate version of Gotham City. Hoping to save his alternate parents, Batman finds Crime Alley and intervenes to prevent the tragedy that has haunted him his entire life. Batman saves his alternate self, a child Bruce Wayne, and his alternate parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne, from Joe Chill, who fails to shoot and rob them as the Batman saves the day. Batman beats and cripples Joe Chill, leaving him at the police station for attempted murder. The Wayne family survives and lives happily together as Batman reveals to them he is Bruce from another timeline. Batman finally feels he has fully overcome the death of his parents. While visiting Africa, zoologist and scientist Kirk Langstrom finds a crashed UFO with a dead alien pilot inside. He collects the alien body. He also captures several gorillas and bats for his scientific experiments. Langstrom returns to Gotham to conduct his experiments in secret. In a tragic attempt to cure his deafness and to eventually give deaf humans a bat's superior sense of hearing and echolocation, Kirk uses genetic engineering to alter himself with bat genes. However, although he is cured of his deafness, the experiment turns him into the monstrous humanoid Batman Bat. To test the effects of alien genes on animals, Kirk uses genetic engineering to introduce alien genes into several gorillas. Most of the gorillas die, except one that he names Grodd, who is enhanced with mental powers and super intelligence on par with his own. Despite starting with altruistic intentions, Kirk's accidental transformation into Man-Bat corrupts him, setting him on a path of conflict with Batman, who must defeat and cure him. While Man-Bat wants to rule Gotham through fear and attacks and terrorizes innocent citizens each night, Grodd develops a plan to exert his new mental power over humans to prove ape superiority over humanity. Kirk, now a mad scientist and monster, embraces the Man-Bat persona to impose fear on Gotham using the bat symbol. Batman realizes that the DCU Gotham needs a Batman since his younger Bruce won't become a vigilante due to his parents being saved. Realizing he must reclaim the bat imagery as a symbol of hope for Gotham, Batman confronts and battles Man-Bat, his greatest, almost supernatural challenge, but the hero is defeated. The Flash, having failed to save his wife in any of the alternate timelines, returns defeated to the DCU timeline, where he is confronted by Gorilla Grodd, who views Flash as a superhuman threat to his powers. Grodd uses his psychic powers to overwhelm Flash's mind with nightmares of both his wife's and his mother's deaths, causing Flash to lose his speed powers through loss of will. Gorilla Grodd uses his mental powers to temporarily disable Flash's super speed, forcing Flash to eventually team up with Batman to get his powers back. Batman discovers the Flash is responsible for bringing him to the DCU timeline and enabling him to save his parents. Batman meets and thanks the Flash for helping him to fully heal. While happy that he has helped Batman save his loved ones from death, Flash is still haunted that he failed to do the same for his wife and mother. Batman theorizes that maybe Flash's status as a superhuman made his timeline alterations too unstable, while Batman's own status as a mere man has allowed his alteration to result in a stable timeline. Realizing Flash has lost his speed powers due to mental trauma, Batman convinces Flash to overcome the mental trauma and to regain his powers by reminding Flash that he has redeemed himself from his inability to save his wife and mother by helping Batman save his parents and younger self from a tragic death, resulting in a finally stable timeline. The recovered Flash and Batman work together to defeat Man-Bat, who is cured from being a monster after Batman and Flash develop a cure for him and force it upon him. Man-Bat is transformed back into a man and redeemed back into Kirk Langstrom. Meanwhile, the super-intelligent Gorilla Grodd attempts to unleash a small intelligent ape clone army of himself to have apes overthrow humans in Gotham. While Batman and Flash defeat Grodd's ape clones, Langstrom feigns submission to Grodd before stabbing Grodd with a newly developed cure. As Grodd begins to lose his mental powers and transform back into a regular gorilla, the gorilla and scientist fight to the death and kill each other. Finally realizing the errors of his ways, Langstrom sacrifices his own life to kill and defeat Gorilla Grodd and to save Gotham. Batman becomes the new public hero of Gotham City, becoming allies with an alternate police commissioner, James Gordon. Flash is surprised and elated to meet an alternate version of his wife, Iris West, and an alternate version of their daughter Nora, living in the alternate Central City. Iris is immediately attracted to Flash, who reminds her of her former husband, an alternate Barry Allen, who died in a car crash long ago and never became a version of the Flash, making her a widow and their daughter an orphan. Flash reveals he is another Barry Allen from another timeline. Barry and Iris fall in love, and Barry becomes the stepfather of Nora. News of the heroics of the Batman and the Flash reaches Metropolis, causing journalist Clark Kent to hear it. The film concludes with Kent as the superhero alien Superman visiting Flash and Batman in Gotham to start the Justice League to save the world from future threats. The end. Ideal movie cast: Matt Reeves and James Gunn as screenwriters, Robert Pattinson as the Batman, Grant Gustin as the Flash, Andy Serkis, CGI, as Gorilla Grodd, Bill Skarsgård as Man-Bat, David Corenswet as Superman, Candice Patton as Iris West, and Luke Roberts and Stella Stalker as Thomas and Martha Wayne. Inspirations: The Flash movie, The Flash TV show, The Amazing Spider-Man movie, The Planet of the Apes movies, Batman the Animated Series, The Batman movie. Second sequel, The Justice League, World's Finest Heroes. A sequel to Superman, 2025, and my previous story The Batman and the Flash, The Brave and the Bold. Story plot. The Joker of the DCU timeline has a tragic origin. The unnamed man who becomes the Joker starts off as a failed comedian living in Gotham and struggling to survive in the ghetto with his pregnant wife. Hoping to earn quick money to get him and his wife out of their current living situation, he joins the Red Hood criminal gang to bust into the playing cards factory next to the Ace Chemicals plant, his previous place of employment. However, prior to the robbery, he is heartbroken when the police reveal his wife died from a freak household accident. A baby bottle heater electrically malfunctioned and killed her. The gang still forces the man into helping them commit the crime. During the break-in of the chemical plant by the Red Hood gang, the Batman intervenes in the robbery and easily defeats the thugs to stop the crime spree of the wanted Red Hood, who is wanted for various robberies and murders in Gotham. Batman doesn't realize that the gang has no official Red Hood leader because different gangsters pin the crimes on different criminals secretly donning the Red Hood persona. Batman tries to capture the man disguised as the Red Hood. During the struggle, the Red Hood accidentally falls into a vat of chemicals. Batman assumes he is dead and regrets causing his accidental fall. However, the man becomes physically and mentally transformed into the Joker. The Joker becomes a permanent white bleached-skinned maniac from the acid bath with red lips and green hair, making him resemble a grotesque clown. Realizing one bad day can drive any person insane and can turn the world upside down, the Joker realizes his life is just a bad joke full of random tragedies and darkly humorous absurdities without cosmic justice and purpose, and he wants to make the entire world realize this truth. Joker, a former Ace Chemicals employee with a background in chemistry, plots to get revenge on Gotham. Joker develops a laughing gas toxin, which causes its victims to laugh uncontrollably, fall down and die, and have permanent grotesque smiles on their dead faces. During a public parade full of many citizens and the mayor himself and celebrating the re-election of Gotham's mayor, Joker releases his laughing gas into the crowd, making the victims laugh like madmen, killing the mayor and many innocent civilians, and leaving their dead faces with permanent grotesque grins. After the major domestic terrorist attack, Joker is public enemy number one, wanted by both Batman, the Gotham Police, and the FBI. Joker flees Gotham with Batman in pursuit. Batman develops an antidote to the laugh gas toxin. In his first fight with Joker, Batman has the upper hand due to his physical superiority until Joker knocks off the hero's gas mask and releases laughing gas onto him, dazing the hero and making Batman wildly laugh until the hero administers a quick shot of the cure to himself to save his own life. However, the momentary surprise attack allows the villainous Joker to escape. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor has used his immense wealth and systemic corruption of the system to escape imprisonment. Realizing the great threat that Luthor poses to world peace, the Flash and Superman try to track him down and stop whatever his next deadly act of vengeance will be. Superman fears how low Lex will stoop to get revenge on Superman and the world for foiling his previous attempts to conquer territory, build his corporate empire, and destroy Metropolis. However, Lex Luthor realizes Joker's potential as an evil ally. Lex finds Joker and teams up with him. Luthor wants Joker to stage a distracting terrorist attack on the United Nations building and council in New York City, while Lex plans to use his secret Black Project technology and to hack into and hijack some nuclear missiles of the major world powers' nuclear arsenals, including nukes from Russia, China, and America, with a devastating artificial intelligence cyber attack. Luthor plans to end the world by forcing the major nuclear powers to attack each other, which would escalate into an apocalyptic nuclear Third World War. If his nuclear war plan is successful, Luthor secretly plans to escape planet Earth in a secret reverse-engineered rocket to another habitable planet in outer space. Joker, supplied with weaponry and thugs from Luthor, agrees to the delightfully evil attack on the United Nations Council. Joker and his thugs infiltrate the UN building during a speech on nuclear disarmament and release his laughing gas. However, Clark Kent is a journalist at the speech, working undercover and suspecting an imminent UN attack by the Joker due to a tip from Batman. In the chaos of the laughing gas attack, Kent quickly and secretly disrobes into his underneath Superman suit, breathes in and absorbs all the laughing gas, and swiftly flies out of the building to safely exhale it high in the sky for it to safely disperse with no victims. Likewise, Batman has also infiltrated the building, due to being hot on his trail. Batman, wearing a gas mask, arrives and defeats the Joker's thugs. Batman then administers a furious beatdown of justice to the Joker, who is greatly injured and barely escapes. Batman helps the UN officials, journalists, and others in the UN building to evacuate it. The injured Joker flees to the rooftop where a getaway helicopter awaits. Superman uses his laser beams from his eyes to precisely bring the chopper down to prevent Joker's escape, causing the apparent death of the Joker as the helicopter crashes and explodes in the New York harbor. However, the Joker's body is not recovered during the crime scene investigation, causing detectives to wonder if his body was completely destroyed and drowned in the crash or if he somehow escaped. Although Batman and Superman have thwarted the Joker's attack on the UN Council and building in New York City, they soon realize it was a mere distraction from Lex Luthor's true plot, to start a nuclear war. As the global news media is distracted by the horrific but thwarted plot to overthrow the UN Council by the Joker, Lex Luthor uses his secret AI technology to hack into and hijack several upgraded nuclear missiles in Russia, China, and America. Several nuclear missiles from these countries prepare to launch at each other, causing the various missile silo teams to panic as they realize a hack has occurred and the missiles might launch to start a nuclear world war. However, the heroes of the Justice League work together to avert the global disaster. As Batman uses his own AI technology to reverse Luthor's hack, Flash uses his super speed and Superman uses his flying powers to intercept and redirect the several missiles that have launched into the air. The superheroes manage to divert the paths of all the missiles into international waters, causing them to safely and harmlessly detonate with no human casualties. As the defeated and panicked Lex Luthor plans to escape in his secret getaway space rocket, Lex is surrounded by Batman, Superman, and Flash. The heroes have traced the source of the hack to Lex's secret hideout headquarters. While Superman and Flash prevent him from escaping, Batman delivers a brutal physical beatdown of Lex Luthor, knocking the villain out and enabling his arrest by international police. Following the victory of the heroes and their saving of the world from nuclear disaster, the United Nations Council unanimously agrees to global control of nuclear arms and nuclear disarmament to prevent another future abuse of them. The UN Council recognizes the Justice League as the world's finest heroes, and they are granted the Nobel Peace Prize. Lex Luthor is imprisoned for life with a pending death penalty trial with the International Criminal Court. The world celebrates their new protectors, the Justice League, which extends an invitation for any good superhumans to join for the good of the Earth and cosmos. The end. Ideal movie cast: Robert Pattinson as the Batman, Grant Gustin as the Flash, David Corenswet as Superman, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, and Joaquin Phoenix as the DCU Joker, an alternate DCU version of the Joker. Ideal screenwriters: James Gunn, Matt Reeves, Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Nolan, and David Goyer. Main comic book inspirations: The Killing Joke, Batman #428-429, Joker's attack on the UN concluding part of the A Death in the Family storyline, The Dark Knight Returns, Nuclear War subplot, The Dark Knight, 2008 film, and Joker, 2019.